1973, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries put an embargo on the United States. This was a result of the conflict in the Middle East. The United States and the Arab countries' conflict was because of the formation of Israel. Many Arab countries were not pleased with the U.S. support of Israel and their military involvement. The oil embargo had a large impact on the economy. The prices of gas were raised dramatically, and some gas stations did not have any oil. OPEC's goal was more than reducing oil consumption in the United States. They wanted to collapse the entire economy. The oil embargo did not succeed in doing so, but it made the United States rethink their energy investments in foreign countries. Richard Nixon was passing legislation to protect clean energy and the environment. The oil embargo made the United States more aware of their reliance on foreign oil and forced them to look for more options. It also gave them awareness on the environment, and this helped pass several energy policies in the 1970s. The oil embargo and energy crisis had a direct impact on the American economy. It raised the price of oil and forced the country to reassess their energy policies and invest money for oil into more diverse sectors. After World War II, the Jews did not have a country to themselves. They had been scattered across Europe. The United Nations decided to partition a British Mandate Palestine into two separate states, one for Jews and one for Arabs. This caused major conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis, as all the surrounding Arab states rejected the partition plan, and the Palestinians considered the proposal unrepresentative of the demographic distribution of Jews and Arabs living in Palestine at the time. The conflict was never settled between the Arabs and the Israelis. In 1967, the Arabs attacked Israel. The Six-Day War was the third Arab-Israeli war. There had been major conflict for many years. When another attack was launched, the United States intervened and won the war in 6 days. This was not the last war. In October of 1973, Syria and Egypt launched a surprise attack on Israeli forces in the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights on the day of the Jewish fast, Yom Kippur. The United States airlifted a large supply of weapons to Israel, and all the surrounding Arab countries were angered by this. They formed the organization OPEC and imposed an embargo against the United States in retaliation, which acutely strained the U.S. economy that had grown increasingly dependent on foreign oil. The Arab nations put an embargo on the United States because of their long-term involvement in the military and politics in the Middle East. This embargo hurt the American economy because it had a large impact on imports of oil to the U.S., dropped from 6 million in September of 1973 to 5 million in subsequent months. By December 1973, the price per barrel rose to 130%. The Arab nations raised the posted price of crude oil by 70% and placed an embargo on exports to the U.S. and other nations allied with Israel. The impact of the daily hardships, such as rising oil prices and rates of inflation, made the perceived scarcity of the resource seem very real. The country did not have a large enough supply to support the economy. The price of gas quadrupled, and 25% of gas stations did not have any oil. The consumption of gas in the United States dropped 20%. Many homes that were being built were not using gas heat because of the price. The United States was looking for ways to be more efficient in using energy. They did this by using different resources and searching for oil sources in more diverse areas. While the oil embargo hurt the economy, it also helped them find new sources and countries to get their resources from. The oil embargo increased energy price, dampened economic growth, and fostered inflation, a combination that became known as stagflation. Since it was the end of cheap oil, the United States and Western countries now had to find ways to keep control of their energy and environment. In the years following, it also caused acrimonious negotiation between members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and Western oil companies over petroleum products and pricing levels. The United States started to invest more into finding oil in the country and other places besides the Middle East. OPEC placed an embargo on the import of Arab oil to the United States. Richard Nixon was passing legislation to help the environment and produce clean energy, such as the Clean Air Act of 1970, which sets goals and standards for the quality and purity of air in the United States. By law, it is periodically reviewed. A significant set of amendments in 1990 toughened air quality standards and placed new emphasis on market forces to control air pollution. This made it hard to boost the economy when more regulations were being set. These issues gave Carter, who established a cabinet-level energy department in 1977, no end of trouble, but he was determined to fashion a comprehensive energy policy, for he understood that energy use was intimately connected with economic and foreign policy. Energy policies have a direct correlation on the impact of foreign policies and the economy. In the 1970s, when the Cold War ended, the United States was going through a recession. The new problems were the energy shortage, high inflation, and high unemployment. The oil embargo made the energy shortage worse. OPEC's goal was to hurt the American economy. They were succeeding in making changes, but the oil embargo alone would not be enough to tank the American economy. The United States had many allies and was too large of a country to go under from an oil embargo. Inflation, which had seemed runaway in 1980, dropped to around 3.5% 5 years later and remained in this range, helped by disarray within OPEC, and drove down oil prices after 1985 for the remainder of the decade. OPEC did not achieve their goal in drastically hurting the American economy for good. For a couple of years, the country struggled to provide enough energy, but the oil embargo allowed them to have more diverse foreign oil. One of the underlying issues that caused the energy crisis was the regulation on the market. A series of major laws and executive action sought to control energy prices, regulate electric and gas utilities, and limit imports. In the 1970s, when the oil embargo was placed on the United States, it was a comprehensive that the failure of the federal agency interventions clear to policymakers. Emergency Petroleum Allocation Act of 1973 purpose was to provide Congress and the executive equated time and opportunity to reach mutual agreement on a long-term petroleum pricing policy. The government was trying to distribute oil everywhere in the country and fix the oil prices. The oil embargo of 1973 was put in place by OPEC because of the unsettlement in the Middle East. After World War II, there had been rising conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis. There was tension between these two powerful nations. The Six-Day War was when the United States intervened when Palestinians attacked Israel. The Arab nations were angry at the United States' support of Israel in terms of military and politics. In 1973, when the Yom Kippur War was taking place, OPEC put an embargo on the United States. OPEC's goal was to collapse the American economy. They did not succeed in doing this, but they made the price of gas increase drastically, and there was not a large enough supply. This caused the United States to rethink their investment in foreign oil to make it more diverse. At the same time, Nixon was passing legislation for clean energy and the environment. The crisis made them more aware of the situation in the environment and the market. The oil embargo and energy crisis had impact on the American economy but did not succeed in collapsing it. The effects were the increased price of oil and pressure on the country to reassess their energy policies and invest oil into more diverse places.